Okay, this week we're going to annotate the mitochondria of our cells. But unlike previous times, we're going to start from the dashboard here under the annotations tab. So if you click on dashboard and then to annotations, however you start your access to your account, and click on annotations, you should get a page similar to this where you have a single annotation with your name under the owner and teams. Probably your annotation is unnamed, but let's change that by saying week 1 to 4. Now, this annotation has everything you've done so far. What we're going to do is open it after you've named it, week 1 to 4, using this edit. And then we're going to open the annotation. And then you should see your cell, the nucleus, the cell membrane with this structure. Here I have the annotation of my cell membrane. And if I click on nucleus, it takes me to the nucleus I annotated as well. Now, what we're going to do here is an important step to keep our annotations clean. We're going to go to menu and click duplicate. What this does is that it makes a new copy of your annotation. And we're going to go back to the dashboard, annotations, and now you should see 2 annotations, week 1 to 4, and then a copy of week 1 to 4, but with no name. So we're going to name this now week 5. And the reason we're going to copy our annotations or clone it is because we're going to delete something from our annotation. But so you don't delete all your work that you've done, all the cell membrane annotation you've done, we're going to keep that in week 1 to 4. And today, or this week, we're going to work on week 5. If you open this, you're going to get the same annotation we were just looking at, because it's a copy of the previous annotation. Now, to proceed with annotating the mitochondria, first thing we're going to do is delete our annotation of the cell membrane. Why? Because in many cases, many of you thoroughly annotated the plasma membrane. So whenever you're going to hover over something in your cell, the plasma membrane segment is going to pop out. And that's going to obstruct your view of the cell and prevent you from noticing details, including mitochondria. So let's get rid of our cell membrane by deleting this segment's data. It says, are you sure? Say yes, delete. And now it's also going to ask you the data of segment cell membrane was deleted. Also remove it from list. Well, I didn't get a chance to do that. But we can also remove it from the list because there's nothing there now. So let's remove this from our list. But what about all the work you've done already last week? It's on the other copy of this annotation, week 1 to 4. But when we work on the annotation named week 5, all we should see is the nucleus. Many of you are going to go through your nucleus and say, wait a second, a lot of the nucleus is erased, is deleted. That's because you probably annotated the plasma membrane or the cell membrane in a slice that also had a nucleus. And so that segment overrode your nucleus. A couple of you, including Annie Lyons, I remember, was able to do the cell membrane annotation and still keep the nucleus. I'm curious how you're able to do that, to keep both. And my intuition is that after you did the plasma membrane, you redid the nucleus, so it overrode the plasma membrane or the cell membrane annotation in the region that belongs to the nucleus. If that's the case, then that explains a lot. If that's not the case, I'm really curious to know how you did it. Anyway, delete the cell membrane annotation so that you have a good view of the entire cell in front of you. You don't need to delete the nucleus because there's no mitochondria inside the nucleus. But the cytoplasm is where the mitochondria are at, so we want to be able to see that clearly without the obstruction of the cell membrane segment. Okay, now I've noticed a gap here, so I'm going to fill that. I'm going to say activate segment ID. I want to make changes to this segment, so now I got the brush. And I'm just easily going to go in here, do a quick select, so not fill that gap. But I'm not going to worry about the nucleus anymore today. Even if I see another gap, I'm going to let it slide. Because today, I want to annotate mitochondria. Now, before I start clicking and selecting, I'm going to try to find a good mitochondria. How am I supposed to know if it's a mitochondria? Look at all this mess around the nucleus. Here, you're going to start to activate things you've learned about the mitochondria in high school all the way till today. Is this a mitochondria? No, probably not. This is some kind of droplet. Is this a mitochondria? Well, it looks circular, and mitochondria, I'm used to them looking like a bean shape or long tubes or noodles or maybe like a network. But can they look circular? Very important thing about things that look like a circle. They may look like a circle in the XY plane, but maybe it's a tube. Maybe it's a bean. If you flip it 90 degrees, maybe it's a bean. But if you take a section, you see a circle. So this can be deceiving. Let's go up and down to see if it immediately closes like a sphere or if it's long and roddy. Let's see. If we go up, let's use the move and go up and then down. And this definitely looks like a sphere. So it doesn't have a bean shape as we're used to. Neither is it elongated and tubey. But it has something going on inside that looks like lamella, the inner folded inner membrane of a mitochondria. Let's look at this one. Same thing. It's spherical, more or less, but it has something inside that may make me think it's a mitochondria. Let's say I'm not really confident that this is spherical mitochondria in the cell. So maybe I want to pause. I want to find the mitochondria that I'm confident, but more confident about, and start to get a feeling for what the mitochondria looks like in this electron microscopy data set. And then, with that confidence, move on to more dubious, ambiguous, tricky organelles. If I look around here, I see this over here. Now, this looks like, if I were to go up and down, it looks like it's a long noodle-shaped mitochondria. Starting over here, stretching like this, and then if I go down, it sort of goes in a little bit to the left, and then it's probably, it stretches over all the way up here towards the nucleus. And then it terminates over here. Actually, it looks like it goes up and then down and then up again, because these two merge over here and then they separate. So it looks like I got this G-shaped mitochondria that is also not just curvy in one dimension, in a flat dimension, on a plane, but is also going deep and out. This, I would say, is a mitochondria. And so after I click on create new segment, let's click on it one more time, why not? Just so you see me clicking on it. I'm going to use quick select tool and I'm going to click here. And now it has highlighted this part of the mitochondria. I'm going to do two things. One necessary. I'm going to do three things. Two necessary you all should do, and one just aesthetic. The necessary things I'm going to do is I'm going to change this new segment and call it mitochondria. The second necessary thing is that while this is highlighted, I'm going to press Control and click on the folder and say move active segment here. And now it's in the same folder as my cell. The third thing, which is aesthetic, you don't have to do it, is change the color of mitochondria. I don't like that they are different shades of, say, it's another shade of cyan when the nucleus is also like cyan greenish. So I'm going to change the segment color, and I'm going to give it a purple color. Okay? You don't have to do that, but I want to do that because I don't like the fact that they were similar in color as nucleus. And now we're going to keep on using the quick select tool by going up a little bit, just like we did with the nucleus. Try to get the very beginning of this. Here's another, oops. That's good. Trying to get the very top of it. This seems like the, here we go. Quick select, and then find interpolate, interpolate, and then go down, click, interpolate. Got to the end of it more or less, and then I'm going to, I know if I go slowly I can see that this belongs, this region over here, I can trace it back to this one, but it's sort of it's like snaking through the cytoplasm as mitochondria do. So I'm going to, oops, here's another one I can do, click, and then let's click this one. I'm not going to interpolate. Why? Interpolation extends your segmentation between the two slices you segmented. That helps and is very useful if they're right on top of each other. But you can see this is over here, and prior to that, the other part is over here. Interpolation is going to mess this up if I try to interpolate between a part of the mitochondria that's here and another part that's here with no overlap. It's going to cause a lot of problems. So I'm not going to interpolate here. But if I go a little bit, here, let me just do this one because I forgot it. And then if I go here, here's the extension of the mitochondria. It's snaking in two directions, down and towards the nucleus. But I can trace its origin back to what I started to segment. So I'm going to click this as well. I'm not going to rush and click interpolate until I sort of get the rest of the mitochondria, and then go back and see what gaps I have. So let's go a little bit deeper. Oops, this is a part 2. I'm going to highlight, and then oh, I saw one that wasn't. I'm going to highlight this one too. Oops. I have to make sure I don't move my mouse before I click. Let me go back. This is not part of my mitochondria. I can see the membrane of the mitochondria. If I unclick this, I can see the membrane surrounding my mitochondria, that thick, that dark line. That's why it was useful to annotate the cell membrane, to get used to seeing membranes. That dark line, that's my mitochondria. That's the outer mitochondrial membrane. So I'm not going to click it. I'm not going, so I know I'm in my, I know that's my mitochondria. And I know that this is outside my mitochondria. Here's my mitochondria. Here's outside the mitochondria because there's this membrane separating them. Let me click on this again so I see it. And then I'm going to move a little bit. This one didn't get selected. Quick select. Move a little bit more. And this is still my mitochondria. And now quick select correctly annotated the whole part. But now if I go a little bit higher, let's click this one. It didn't pick up this one, this part of it. But I believe they're part of the same mitochondria because I see the history on a previous slice that they were one. Now if I move a little bit more, let's click here, let's click here, and let's click in the middle. And let's go a little bit higher. And now they've separated. But they've separated in this slice. Underneath it, they're connected. So it's like you have a tube. Let's take a wire here to represent our mitochondria. Let's imagine this wire is the mitochondria. It did something like this. So in one slice, they're separate, but that's because underneath that slice, they were curved like this. It was curved like this. So I'm going to label both of them as mitochondria. I know that this is mitochondria as well. And therefore, these two are part of the same mitochondrion. This is going to be mitochondria. Now I see that I went a little bit outside. I'm not going to fuss about that. And now I think this is part of the same mitochondria, and this is the part of the same mitochondria. And this. So it's hard to imagine what this looks like in 3D until we do the reconstruction. But surprisingly, this tells us now that this mitochondria, this is part of the mitochondria. Because if you look at the history, they're fused here, and then some interesting things happen. Maybe it's like a branching network. It's not so simple. I'm going to be a little bit, picky here and get rid of this filling that I think it takes away from the beauty of the mitochondria. But of course I overdid it, so now I'm just going to use a tracer to consider this part of the mitochondria as well. Okay, now I'm going to go back to quick select. And did I miss anything so far? Yeah, this is part of the mitochondria. This is also part of that mitochondria. And then the quick select tool accidentally included this, even though it's not part of it. Let's go back to quick select. And you can see that there's one part still here. The other one disappeared. They're both here again. This is going to look amazing in 3D. Try to guess what it's going to look like. Okay. Oops, I saw this may be long. Oops, I'm not going to go there. This is part of the mitochondria. This is part of the mitochondria. The same mitochondrion, but it definitely looks like it's like a branched noodle, I think. I think we did a sufficient job, but I'm going to do myself a favor and get that one piece that's don't run away. No, lost it. Okay, if it's taking more, if I don't do it this time, I'm gonna let it go. Oh, look at this, I can do this. Okay, let's see what we got so far. Oh, this is part of it. This is part of it. As you can see, I'm not eagerly interpolating because this is a complex structure. Interpolation will make more mistakes and that you'll have to correct by erasing. Then it will save you time. Okay, let's go to compute mesh, and then let's look at it in 3D. So we're going to minimize this panel and then go here to the 3D reconstruction. Let's zoom into this. Let's actually expand this by, my mouse is not really being nice to me today. Dude. Maximize. Let's zoom in with command and then your mouse. And then let's observe what we've done so far. This is what we've annotated. This is the reconstruction of the mitochondria. Look at that. I can definitely relate to this curve, but let's flip it on the YZ axis. You can see that I missed a slice here, but you can see now that I have nothing useful to say here. Oh yeah, it goes down then up again in a very cool way. This is a real mitochondria. Look at this. Zoom out. Let's minimize this and come back to XY. Oh no, YZ allows me to inspect and see that I've missed a couple of slices here. I think that can wait. But let's look at another mitochondria. Now, initially I was going to say for each mitochondria, start a new segment. But I don't think that's necessary. I think because mitochondria can be long connected and branched networks, the definition of mitochondria is not rigorous. It's not like one nucleus per cell. It starts and ends at the nuclear membrane. Mitochondria are branched, convoluted, and so I don't think it makes sense to make a new segment for each mitochondria. And so we're not going to do that. We're going to continue the same segment for all our mitochondria. Now, what did we learn about mitochondria so far? One thing is that it's not just a clean membrane. Well, first of all, there's a membrane that's darker, okay? And then it's not a dark circle surrounding a clear interior. The interior is a shade of gray, but there are multiple shades of gray, and the darker shades represent the lamella. But the lamella are not like clearly zigzaggy as we see in diagrams. They can be in all kinds of angles that make it look a little bit uncommon to us. But this is also an example of a mitochondria, and it's probably, but it's spherical. So here I just made a connection, like a deduction. I was confident that this is a mitochondria. Now, I would say that internally, these two look alike. First of all, they have the same darkness of outer membrane, and then they have also the different shades of gray in the form of lines or lamella on the inside. True that this is spherical, not noodly, but based on what I've seen in the first mitochondria, I can say this is a spherical mitochondrion. Now, I didn't start off by saying, okay, this is a spherical mitochondrion. I calibrated my expectations to an organelle I was confident as I can be, that that's a mitochondria. Then I took that confidence and applied it to an organelle with a variation. Here, the variation is that it's spherical. It's not a tube, like a branched loop noodling tube. So I'm going to say this is mitochondria too. In fact, it's going to give me an easy time because it's a sphere. I'm going to highlight, and then here I can start to use interpolation. Why? Because it's all in the same axis. There's no looping around. I would not use interpolation with a complicated mitochondria, but these simple spherical ones, why not? That's what interpolation helps us do. My mouse is a little skibbity today. Here we go. Maybe I shouldn't blame my tools. Here we go. There we go. Interpolate. I think we have annotated another mitochondrion. Let's compute mesh again and inspect how good we did. I'm going to get rid of the electron microscope image here by going to settings and show dataset border. No, that's not what I want to remove. Let's keep this. And then let's say, yeah, remove the plain display. So I don't want to display these in my 3D reconstruction, so I'm going to hide the planes. And so now I have a little mitochondrion over here. And it looks like I got all slices. Lovely. Number 2. Let's see if I can do another one. Let's do a mitochondrion that's challenging. Like, okay, looking at it, this looks like a mitochondria. And it looks like it's going to be all noodly, but not too convoluted. So we can start quick selecting, quick select, quick select, oops, the end of it. Quick select this one. I'm not hasting to use interpolation for this one because it's snaking through the cytoplasm. Interpolation will make more mistakes that require erasing than will save me time. There we go. I think I got a third mitochondrion. Now you can see that, yeah, that did a good job. Do this one too. This one. The very tip of it. Let's do this one too. I think I got most of the mitochondria. Now let's compute mesh. I'm going to have some gaps because I didn't interpolate and I didn't, let's see. Let's see, compute. Oh, let's make sure this box is clicked. And now we're going to see the computed mesh. So here's the first one we did. Here's the second one. Here's the third one. Let's turn to the XY axis. And you can see that I have some gaps here. There are some slices that weren't filled. Let me be a good example and take care of that. Quality over quantity, he said. Let me interpolate and see what happens. Okay. Got away with that. This one. And, okay, this one. Third mitochondria. Let's move on to a more challenging one. I think when I first looked at this cell, I was like, oh, is this mitochondria? No, this doesn't look like a mitochondria. It's spherical. But based on what I've calibrated myself with so far, it has that thick membrane of the same kind of tone of dark gray, and it has things in the inside. It's not smooth and clear like this one. And so I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I am 85% confident this is a spherical mitochondria. Remember, mitochondria are dynamic in shape, location, and number. So I'm going to say this is a mitochondria, and I'm going to start to use quick select. And here I'm going to use interpolation wholeheartedly. This is an easy one for interpolation to get right. Interpolate. This is the very tip of it. Let's see. Okay, I'll work with that. Interpolate and see what. Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. Just literally, I think I did only 4 slices, and I'm quite sure interpolation did the rest. Let's compute the mesh, and then let's look at the 3D reconstruction. And let's look, why does it disappear? If it disappears on you, just zoom in and out, command and your mouse, find it, and go back again. Let's see where it is. It's going to be further away from these guys. So let's go like this. Here it is. Here's my new mitochondrion. A spherical one. And we now have no gaps. Lovely. Let's maximize this again and bring our side bar again. These are 4 mitochondria, varying degrees of difficulty. And notice how I started. I started with one that I was confident. Start with the noodly one, because it has the, more indications that it's a mitochondria than the spherical ones. Look at this spherical organelle. Is this a mitochondria? Let's look at it. I go in and out. It's spherical. The shade of gray is different than what I've annotated so far. And then it has this weird thing inside it that doesn't look like it's like, it looks different. I don't know what this is. And I'm hoping others see. Look at this, for example. It has a different shade of gray, dark gray, as a membrane than the mitochondria, which is much darker. And then inside, look at these two dark parts. I don't know what this is. This is actually one of the things I'm hoping we can answer through this project. What are these things? They're not mitochondria. Based on what I am familiar with regarding mitochondria, maybe they're an alternative kind of mitochondria. I don't know. We're going to have to do some digging. One may say, well, doesn't this look like inner membranes? Okay, I think there's an argument that there's something going on inside here. But these two things and the shade of gray is very different than this, which is, I'm willing to bet, is a spherical mitochondria. So I'm not going to hasten and mark this as a mitochondria. This, though, I would annotate as mitochondria, this as well, and these two, and this, and so forth. This week, annotate 10 mitochondria. That's enough. And if you have less than 10 mitochondria, then this is an easy week for you. But remember, quality over quantity. While I'm at it, and while I just said that, let's make sure we fill in this gap. Okay. I want to look at a different cell. This was a gut cell, the busiest of the cells in this data set. Let's take another cell. Let's take, for example, let's see. Let's look at the chat. Chat, which cell should we take? I see neurons. Let's do neurons. Let's do, that was a joke. Let's do ALA. That's an amphid neuron, one of the neurons that eventually is going to poke out of the nose so that the worm can sense its environment. Here's the nucleus of this cell. And let's zoom in. This is a relatively smaller cell. Here's the cell membrane I can see. Okay, let's look at the boundaries of this cell. Okay, from here to here. Oh, wow. Oh, this is the boundary of the cell. And so this is basically what we're looking at. If I were to zoom in here, I would say, based on what I've learned so far, this is a mitochondrion, this is a mitochondrion, this is a mitochondria. And if you go in and out, you won't see clear lamella. There's a... Okay. How did I say, based on what did I say these are mitochondria? Well, first of all, this is the nucleus. Okay. Okay, the next question is, what are the largest organelles or parts of a eukaryotic animal cell? Well, in this case, it's going to be mitochondria is next up on things you should be able to see in this data set. In terms of like membrane-bound, enclosed, maybe like bean-like, tube-like, noodle-like shaped organelles. Endoplasmic reticulum, different story. This is maybe an part of an endoplasmic reticulum. It's too thin to be a mitochondria. So I'm telling you like my reasoning, my process here. So what else is filling the cell other than these shapes? Let's see. There are some of these clear biocondensates. I don't see any membrane surrounding them, so they look like they're membraneless, unless the membrane is not being stained darker. And then, what else do we have? Basically these clear droplets. Oh, what's going on here? Look at this. This is some kind of, I don't know if there's a membrane or I don't think there's a membrane here. It looks like a biocondensate, but it has compartments, very dark and then gray. I'm going to stay away from that this week. This does not look like a mitochondria. What's left? This, that. They look like mitochondria. Oh, look at this. Some kind of like pearl that may be membrane bound. I see like something resembling perhaps darkness at the periphery, But look how clear it is. This is a scream out mitochondria to me. I'm not going to consider it mitochondria. This I would consider part of a mitochondria that then sort of jumps here. And then in the cell next to it, let's drag this. Here's the nucleus, easy peasy. This I would say is mitochondria with a very interesting noodly shape. Some of you will have more than 10 mitochondria. Some of you may have a few mitochondria. The number of mitochondria is a feature of your cell I want you to report on in your reflection. That was a neuron. Let's look at the chat. Hypodermis. Let's do hypodermis. Let's look at this one. This is a little bit hazy. None of you have these hazy cells. Let's look at Hype 7. CP, a lot of A's. Ooh, this is quite crisp. Nucleus, screaming nucleus. Look at the endoplasmic reticulum over here. This is endoplasmic reticulum. Or maybe Golgi body. We'll know when we study those. Golgi apparatus. But they're not mitochondria. This is mitochondria. This is mitochondria. This is mitochondria. What about this? I would not consider this to be mitochondria. Look at this. Here you have a dark halo, the membrane of the mitochondria. You don't have that here. So on that basis, I would say this is not a mitochondria. This I would say is mitochondria. So this is a long mitochondria, noodling all around. Very cool. These hypodermal cells are really interesting. I think that's enough to give you a sense of mitochondria. Look for organelles that have a clear membrane that is darker than the inside and the outside. And then if you also see textures on the inside resembling or reminding you of lamella, that's a good place to start. Start with the one you're most confident is a mitochondria, calibrate your expectations accordingly, then move on to other ones. Before I leave, look at this one. I would not consider this a mitochondria. This is something very interesting. I would want to know what this is. But I don't see a membrane on the outside. And they're very dark on the inside. One may say, well, maybe these are the lamella of a mitochondria. Well, you'd have a point there, but where is the membrane? Where's the outer membrane? I'm not going to bet any money that this is a mitochondria. What it is, though, is something I hope we're able to discover this semester. Maybe by consulting some references, comparing different cell types, seeing where these are, which cell types have this, which cell types do not, and being able to make some hypotheses and maybe test them somehow. This is the kind of wildness in this data set that leads to questions that can lead to discoveries. I don't think this is mitochondria over here. This though, and this I would say is mitochondria. Explore your cell, take your time, find the organelle you're most confident is a mitochondria. Start by annotating that using quick select. Don't use trace. Do not hasten to use interpolate. It may cause more problems than is worth. As you see, the mitochondria are small. And so clicking a few times should get the job done. 10 mitochondria at least for this week, all under the same segment and only for your cell. Enjoy!